Hi, this is Pedro Junqueira, and I'm gonna present how to pass the DA-100 exam. So this is the Microsoft exam that validates your Power BI skills. So in this agenda, I'll try to cover in about 10 to 15 minutes. I've just wrote this presentation and I haven't done much preparation. I've passed the exam pretty recently. I've passed in 14, I think it was 15th of May on Saturday, yes. I got a score of 852 out of 1,000, which is a little bit over the 700 minimum to pass, which I think it was okay. It wasn't like flying colors, but was above average with some margin. And in this agenda, I'm gonna go through should I bother taking the DA-100, and then that's gonna help you to make a decision to take or not to take. And then I'm gonna tell you, in my opinion, how hard this exam is. What's the exam format, so what are the type of questions they ask and how many questions are in the exam, how long it takes, and how should I prepare for it. So I want to be ready when I see the tests. So I'm going to tell you about the curriculum, what courses can you take online to prepare, and how you should practice. And when I know I'm ready, and some tips under the exam, and lastly, what if I fail? So a little bit about myself. I'm Pedro. I've already said that, but here's some information. I'm a business intelligence or data professional, more specialized in business intelligence, and I have skills in data analysis, business analysis. I'm a Python programmer. I have a DA-100 certification, and also Azure fundamentals. And after that, I would like to prepare for data engineering, which is an area that I wanted to expand my skills. So, should I bother taking the exam? You may be the case that it was me. So I'm already good at Power BI, and I wanted to validate my skills. So the problem was, and I'm gonna tell that later, was even though I was good at Power BI, and I don't know if that's your case, but I think that's the case of most people that use Power BI. Not everyone that uses Power BI uses 100% of Power BI. I may use like 30 to 40%, maybe 50 if I stress. But there are some functionality that I really don't use in Power BI. I don't use it because I don't think it's good, because I think I use other tools to do the same thing. I'll give one example. I rather prefer to do my ETL in SQL in stored procedures rather than using Power Query, for example. I think Power Query was designed more for a self-service type of work, but I use Power BI a lot for modeling and also for visualization, which is the most used skills or functionalities that I use as a visualization tool and also as a modeling tool. And even modeling tool, I've used much more analysis service than Power BI. So this exam was good so that I could learn, even though the visualizations and the modeling things that I didn't know, this was good for me. And another thing was, I haven't used Power BI for about a year on a daily basis because I was doing more data science and data engineer work. So I was using sparingly Power BI. So I've kind of like lost my skills, and I wanted to go back to Power BI because I was starting to use it on a daily basis. And then because I wanted to start working again with Power BI, I thought that was good for me to do the exam. Another reason that you'd like to take the exam is that you don't have experience and you wanted to learn Power BI. I would say to these people. You can use the exam to go through and learn, but maybe I would get some experience with Power BI, or because a lot in the exam will come from experience, because even though I'm going to go through this later, the test is very broad. What it measures is if you know how to use it in a context of an analysis that you're doing. It's not much like memorization. It's more like, okay, you have to memorize the functionalities, how you should do it, when you should do, should we use a method or other, but you have to do in a context of an analysis. So I would say, yeah, you can do that, but ideally this test was more designed for someone that has got more experience. So get some experience or learn it too, and more than memorize stuff, try to practice. That's very important. Another reason that you'd like to take the exam is you're not working with that analyst, but then you wanted to go through the learning to get the certification, and then that may help you to find a job. So, or it can be other reasons. I think I've explained a little bit about myself. I wanted to kind of recycle my skills in Power BI. So all in all, I think it's worth it, but I would say get some practical experience, even though it just try to use and solve problems with your data, like let's say your health data, your cycling data, if you're a sportsman, your running data, or try to analyze some data, even though you don't use that at work. Try to learn and practice, and then once you've got a grasp of it, and then you can prepare for the exam. That's gonna be much easier. How hard the exam is? I would say that if you think about depth and breadth, I think it's completely breadth. It doesn't go too deep in every subject. It has got a very extensive content, but it's not too deep or advanced in any areas. I think I did a bit of a spelling error there. So what's the exam format? I don't think it's a fixed number, but it's around 50 to 54 questions, and usually is starting off with 2 case studies with about total 8 to 10 questions. It's based on a scenario, so it gives you like a scenario, a problem, a data model, a type of the business, and they may give you some tables, some relationships, and they will ask like 4 to 5 questions about the scenario. So you're gonna have 2 case studies, and one thing that's very important is once you've completed case studies and then you say I finished, you cannot go back. So that's very important. And then you probably will do the 2 case studies, and then after that you have like about 46 to 48 questions. That's, you can navigate, you can save the questions and go back, and you can do in any order you want. What I would do in sequence, and if I find something hard, I would skip. The type of questions are various. There are like multiple choice, which is you have a question and then you have to pick one answer, one right answer. There are questions like multiple options, so it can be more than one correct answer. Let's say given this statement, what from the next questions, from the options, how many of those are true, and then you can select 1, 2, 3, 4 or more. There are drag and drop questions where there is a fill in the blanks, or a certain statement will be related to like let's say direct query, or live connection, whatever it is. And there is like one type of question that's called steps in order. It's kind of like there is a list of steps, let's say 6 or 7 steps, and they say in order to achieve that in Power BI, select 4 steps of those 7 in a particular order. I think this is the kind of the hardest questions, at least for me, unless I knew what I had to do. I always got confused, and I probably would be able to select the steps, but I would like flip around one step. But this is probably these are the type of question that I would skip, that would take longer for me. Some cases I knew how to do it and it was easy, but most of the cases was hard. You have questions where you have kind of like a true or false. It's usually like 3 statements, and they say, given a certain subject, this statement is true or false, this statement is true or false. And then one thing about this exam is you don't need to get everything right in order to get points. So you may have questions where you have, let's say, select options that are right. Let's say that they have 3 options, and let's say you select 2 right and 1 wrong. It's like a partial question, so you get points. So because of that, I would recommend never leave anything blank. Okay. And then there is a type of questions where it's like a group of questions. It's not a case study, but they usually ask you one question and they say, if I do this, would that solve the problem? True or false? And then they ask the same question again, but then they suggest another thing, like if, let's say, for example, I wanted to sort the top 3 products. If I use the top n functions, would that solve the problem? Yes or no? If I use the function rank, would that solve the problem? Yes or no? So and then they ask like 4 questions and the same questions, and they give you a suggestion, and then you have to say yes or no. That's one type of questions. And lastly, it's like fill in the blanks, which is kind of similar to the drag and drop, but it's instead of a drag and drop, it's like a Dropbox. So these are kind of the type of questions but if you do and buy, I'm talking about the preparation now. So I would recommend you to download the PDF, which I'm gonna show here. No, it's here. You have the PDF. Download this PDF, and here is gonna outline like, so what areas the exam cover, like prepare the data, and then every single bullet, make sure that you cover. One way to cover that is to do the learning path. It's not going to cover 100%. And what I would do is I would complement with Power BI documentation. If I go my bookmarks, I would go on the Power BI documentation. If in the learning, if there's any topics on the PDF that's not covered, you just do a search and like read the documentation with more details of that particular subject. So that's the way I would prepare for the exam. That's the way I did, and it did work. So first step is download the PDF, go to the Microsoft Learning Path. Here's the link, and then complement with documentation. In terms of course, I do recommend one which is Philip Burton in the Udemy. It's very, very comprehensive. He goes in Power BI through every single menu, every single button, and then give practical exercises and tests just to make sure that you know the content. I think he's go beyond and above. If you follow his course, you're gonna cover 99% of the exam content. But I would say if you have extra money and then you want to go through a little bit more tips and tricks about Power BI,
There is the Park Stevens. I thought that was a bit shallow. It was a bit of a disappointment. I think I paid $27 for a monthly subscription. I just subscribed for about a month, but I just took the course in about 3 to 4 days. It's not very extensive. It's only maybe a couple of hours. He does cover the curriculum very thorough. Every single bullet point he has a video, but they're very shallow, like 3 to 5 minutes video. He just given an example, but it's okay. It's good. It's good. It does help, but it's not like I wouldn't do only this. If you have to pick one, I would pick Philip Barton Udemy. He did this course for when the certification was before the DA-100, when it was the 7778 analyzing and visualizing data with Power BI, but it's pretty much the same content. He adapted to the DA-100. He added new videos, but I think it covers a lot, especially the M part of it. I think it's pretty good. The DAX part of it, I think he doesn't do a good job. I haven't put on my slides, but you may know the SQL BI website. I think that's the best place for the DAX, or even the learning path of Power BI. I think that cover enough DAX that you need to know for this exam. So once you cover all the content, you make sure that you cover either through a course or the learning path or the documentation. I would recommend to start practicing and doing some mock exams so you can see gauge how good you are in terms of if you really learned the content. I would recommend you can buy some Udemy, but be very careful with copyrights, but because I found things that people are just copying from this next one here that is the measureup.com website. That's the official, I think it's Pearson's, one of the comps that administer the test itself. They also have this company called MeasureUp that does practice exam. It is absolutely exactly the same format. It's very similar. Even some questions they're not exactly the same, but they're very similar. So I would recommend that. Also, if you go to my GitHub, I did a very thorough notes, like a summary going through every single bullet point of the curriculum. Okay, when do you know that you are ready for exam? If you're already good at Power BI, and then you have a very good broad knowledge, I would say go for the exam. You may pass because it's not very deep, not difficult, but be careful to make sure that you cover the areas that you are weak. In my example, I was very weak at Power Query because I don't actually use it, so I had to learn a lot about those. If you're doing practice test, I would say if you are just acing it, kind of getting close or a little bit over 90%, I would say you are ready to go. You can do a readiness test. My friend Flavio Menezes, he's got a good blog post where you can go. Yeah, this is the article, very comprehensive article. And at the end, you can sign up for his mailing list, and then you're going to go to a Power BI dashboard where he's going to ask you some questions and how good you are in these particular areas of the exam and assess if you're ready or not. I really recommend that one. And once you feel you're ready, just go and take the exam. The worst that can happen is you fail. Don't worry. That's not the end of the world. You pay extra $165 and do it again. It's not too expensive. On the exam day, what I recommend is book the exam in the weekend and in the morning, because you're going to be rested and you're not going to have any extra pressure to finish and go to work or whatever. people will be in the housing or making noise trying to go to school, or your kids. Just say to your family, go have breakfast somewhere, go to the, I don't know, playground, and leave me alone for about couple of hours, and then you do the exam relaxed. One thing that I got a bit nervous, even though I already had experience with the Measure app, which is very similar, the navigation is a bit different. So when I finished the exam, I marked questions that I haven't answered that I want to go back and answer. It was about 4 or 5 questions, but I couldn't find it. It's an error that's on the top left that goes back to the area where you can navigate. If you read Flavio blog post, he's gonna give you a link to a video of Microsoft that tells you how to navigate. I haven't watched this video, but I think it's pretty useful. That will give you an idea of how the exam looks like and how to navigate through it. So one important thing is, when you do the exam, you have enough time. You may have about 2 to 3 minutes per questions, and then really carefully. And for example, there are some questions where I've mentioned already, you have to pick like 2 or 3 options. Sometimes it says, what are the 2 options below? Sometimes I was very in a hurry. I didn't see the word 2, and then I only picked 1 question and I got that one wrong. But to pick the other one was pretty easy. And I did a lot there in the practice test because I was not paying attention. But on the exam, they make sure that you pay attention and read it very carefully. That question may cost you the exam. Another tip is, if the question is too hard, there will be, out of the 52 questions, there may be like 5 or 6 questions that are a bit harder, or you just skip those. Just try to do the easy ones first, and then if you got the easy ones done, better. Sometimes you can spend too much time in the hard one and don't have any time left to do the easy ones. What if you fail? Don't worry. Don't be afraid to fail. If you feel that you are ready, just book the test, do it. If you fail, no problem. You need to identify why you failed. Was it because you were nervous? You did it too quick? You didn't pay attention? Was there any other area that you were weak? One good thing is, when you finish the exam, either you pass or fail, you can print a report that's gonna tell you how well you did in each one of the sessions. They're not going to disclose the questions that you got right or wrong, but they will say, oh, in this session you got 100%, you got 50%, and then you go back and study the ones that you were weak. And then next time you're gonna be strong and you're gonna pass. So just regroup, stud, and rebook the test. So I think that's about it. If you want to get in touch with me, you can connect me on LinkedIn or make the comments below. I'm gonna put the links for the courses and everything on the presentation, and I may also put a link for you to download my presentation. Okay, thank you very much, and I hope my presentation helped you to pass the exam. Thank you. Bye.